Awesome. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode where I am here along with my very dear guest who is here to share more wellness with you, more ideas with you, so that we can take our health and our kids' health to the next level. I would like to remind you the purpose of doing this lives. We are doing this so that we can share some non traditional tools which are not widely known or not practiced easily. And so, our goal together is to help you discover that. And if you are a parent, I know this is time of the year where you would have tackled your back to school list, your school supplies, your kids' sneakers and backpacks and lunch boxes. But what I wanted to talk today is, have you planned what will go inside those lunch boxes? And so I have my guest here who is here to tell you and share more ideas with you, right? Our kids today, the stats we hear all the time are disturbing. 1 in 6 kids does fall in an autism spectrum. 54% of the kids do have some disease process going on. And we know that while there are so many contributing factors, one factor that we have in our control and that we can change, which I've seen in my practice, and I'm sure my guest Lisa will be able to shine more light, is changing the food that is on their plate. And so my guest is a dynamic change agent. She is a business guru. She runs a unique freedom kitchen, and she left her career of 25 years with HP to follow her calling. And after a decade of teaching holistic health, Lisa could clearly see that a need to influence and come about influencing a new food ecosystem. And so she created a 4-part docu-series, and also she's working on a live event which was a summit which I was a part of back in April, and I'm sure she is up to bringing another live event in October to promote more food freedom. Lisa believes that being in the kitchen symbolizes taking care of oneself. It is how we nourish ourselves and how we show our love for others. And so she is teaching classes in the kitchen, and she has a lot of things to share for what her students are up to. And so without further ado, let me welcome Lisa on my platform today. Welcome,
Thanks
Lisa.
for having me, Neethi. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you were able to spend time to share this with all of our listeners, because I know you have a very inspiring background, Lisa. So, why don't you begin by telling our listeners a little bit about your background, your journey, and how you came about practicing what you do today?
Yeah, well, of course, it started with my own health crisis. So I think
Wow.
many of us, right, who end up
Yeah.
teaching this walked the
Yeah.
path ourselves. And so
Yes.
that's really what makes a good coach, is someone who's walked before you and experienced this themselves. I didn't grow up wanting to teach diet or detoxification. I definitely didn't grow up wanting to teach kids. I enjoy business. And so my degrees are in business management and marketing. I worked for GM, EDS, and then Hewlett Packard in information technology. In my last 8 years with HP, I was a consultant in regional productivity, and I have the ability to see things. Maybe it's the engineer in me or the systems training, but I can see the whole system, the process flow. And after having my own health crisis and sort of having to walk my way back, right? So here I am at 36, type 2 diabetes, triglycerides of 300. I'm told I'm a heart attack waiting to happen. Of course, at this point, I'm still a smoker. I eat out 7 days a week because of my stressful job. And I have a tremendous amount of stress being on call 24/7 and working full time while raising kids. And then one of the things we probably don't talk about is the stress that eating out actually puts on our body because of the chemicals in the food. That puts a chemical stress on the body that is compounded then by any other stressors in our life. So here I am with a number of health issues and talking about carpal tunnel surgery. because I had chronic pain in my wrists, but I had chronic pain in my ankles too. And I was told I could do surgery on my wrist, but for my ankles, I needed to take Advil for the rest of my life. And I thought, is it possible that maybe the pain in my wrist and the pain in my ankles are the same thing, not two
Mm.
things? That was sort of the first thing that clued me into the fact that the medical profession had become just like the assembly lines I had been supporting in my professional life. And so think about this, and that is the whole world has become an assembly line. And that's what we did with the medical profession, which is why we see specialists for all different parts of our body, as if our body is not all one system. And so, which is the premise of holistic health, or, functional medicine, is taking a look at the whole and not the parts. And so I woke up to that probably earlier than a lot of people, and started teaching people how I reclaimed my health,
Mhm.
buying a wellness spa and coaching people mostly on detoxification and overall health and on prevention. I
Ah.
never plan to teach food, but you can't really talk about detox or reclaiming your health unless you address food.
You talk food, yes.
And so my classes always ended up in the kitchen, which is really how I ended up with Freedom Kitchen. It was a very organic process of owning a wellness spa and then teaching a detox program. And I've been certified in a number of things, like AcuDetox, which is acupuncture of the ear, and Psych K, and yoga and breath work, and a number of things. But somehow it always comes back to food, and maybe just my love of food as an Italian, my passion around food.
Mhm.
Somehow God has placed me in this position of teaching people about food.
Wow, that is awesome. And that I can relate to what you're saying 100%, because cooking is such an integral part of what we do and what we are as a human. So, food and cooking is how we can continue this love and just keep growing as a human. So, I love that. Your path from from your health crisis to your uh, discovering and detoxing helping people detox with a spa led you to the kitchen, and you are up there sharing all things wellness in your kitchen, uh, shaping our next generation. Wow,
Yes.
awesome. And so I know you, so on a day-to-day basis, how many kids do come to your cooking classes, and who are those kids?
So when I first started teaching the kids, which again, I really did not seek out, it happened to find me
Wow.
through, matters of circumstance. And originally, I actually hired a retired teacher to teach the classes, but I really wanted to include the information on holistic health. And I definitely did not want to offer classes um, that would continue any misconceptions about what kids will or won't eat. And the misconceptions are that kids only want, mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, and that is not true. Now, a lot of things have led up to the kids eating those things, and the food manufacturers have done a great job making them hyper palatable. Um, but that's only because our kids aren't being exposed to a variety of foods, and they're not being included in the process. So, what I found, and you asked how many kids I get in my classes. When I first started, it was more of an evening activity, and I had public school kids.
Okay.
I did get a small community grant for a Title I school that sent through about 60 students for a couple cooking classes. And now I'm teaching for a homeschool association and making my classes available to more homeschool associations, which seem to be more in alignment with the Freedom Kitchen mentality of empowering their kids. And so I say that because I see a lot more in the homeschool community around raising independent, free thinking
Mm.
children versus the public school system, which is a little bit more of activity based and conforming. Um, so currently, I have about 50 to 100 students a year, somewhere in there, that are coming through my classes per semester. And I'm now making those available online so that I can, and I practiced all
Yeah.
summer actually doing online classes so that I can take students from anywhere.
Ah, okay. Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, you can reach so many more people now that you if you go online.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And so public school, I know, like you mentioned, there are so many kids, they are homeschooled, and so they are able to have that time. But I know my kids go to public school, Lisa, and I know that they don't have at times that much time in their day because they are in school from 7:30 to 4 o'clock in the evening. So they don't have that much time. So for those listeners, which I'm sure majority of them fall in there, right? So how can they have kids be part of the kitchen? How can we empower those kids?
So the first thing I would say is that's by design. It's by design for our kids not to have time. Because when they don't have time, just like us as adults, when I was working, 80 to 120 hours a week as an IT operations manager, I didn't have time either. And when we don't have time, we allow decisions to be made for us. We don't have
Yeah,
room to critically think.
that's
There's
true.
we don't have space for discernment. So the first thing I would say, and that was such a perfect segue, is we have to create space for our kids. If
Mm-hmm.
we want to raise free thinking, critically thinking kids, we have to create space for them. So we have to that's on us as parents to create what I call like sacred space for them to be able to breathe, healthy
Yeah.
boundaries. Even with a busy schedule, we all have to eat. And I'm on a mission, as you know, with the docu-series that you participated in the spring. I'm on a mission to move us from the convenience mindset to the creative
Mhm.
mindset. So
Love
the
that.
same level of thinking that created the problems cannot create the solutions. So again, we need to create the space. We need to foster an environment where the kids can actually be creative.
Hmm.
And Ariana Huffington said, a culture of burnout cannot be a culture of creativity.
Exactly.
So if we disagree with the trajectory that we're on, now I can go back to my corporate days, and from a position of even corporate audit, regional productivity, I was looking at things thinking this isn't sustainable. This trajectory is not sustainable. I mean, we can only offshore so much, downsize so much, automate so much. And this isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable for us to think here in the United States that we can pay the least for something, but be paid the most. There's many things, if we were to critically think, we would say, well, this isn't sustainable. The
Mm.
trajectory that we're on needs to change. So we have to have the courage to be creative and try new things. Otherwise, we will end up as a culture of burnout. And we're going to find, as I think we are, and I predicted this 15 years ago, that we were headed for a recession. Our GDP has been dropping in this country. We've offshored all of our capability. We're now dependent on many other countries. And so that's a macrocosm of what I am attempting to fix with the kids. The only reason that I would want to teach them cooking classes is to help them take their power back. When they take their power back and we can move them from a mentality of convenience, like someone else is going to do it for you, to a culture of creativity, like you got this, you can do this, create something new. Start by creating your own food.
Yes,
That's
yes.
going to lead to creative solutions on a macro level. So we have to start at a micro level to change the macro level.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that is incredible. I love that idea that first of all give them that space. If they don't have that space, there is no time. So I love that idea. And like you said, convenience it's been taking over. So convenient foods are definitely taking up most of the our kids' palate, and they do help us get some time, but in the long run, they are not useful. We know that, and that's the reason our kids' health is deteriorating. So I can I it feels me, it pains me to see that happen again and again. And so I know you are embarking on that journey, and you are being an influencer for that change. And then so if I were to ask you, like, what are the number one culprits that you have seen kids in kids plates, that once you remove, you see the world just open up? So what are those top culprits?
Well, I will say I've coached adults longer than kids. So I
Okay.
spent 14 years coaching adults and the last 3+ years working with kids. And I have found in my last 14 years that when we take away gluten, dairy, and sugar, we at
Mm.
least start with those. But I am a huge proponent of an elimination protocol because I believe that someone needs to have the tools. Our body doesn't stay the same. Our body evolves and changes, and food isn't staying the same. So we need to have the tools, the process to be able to go through an elimination protocol whenever we start feeling inflammation again, or we start feeling brain fog, or if our joints hurt, or we have lethargy. And so what I do in my 3-month adult program is I teach them a process to
Ah.
go through so that they can go through this process of elimination,
Mm-hmm.
remind themselves of all the detox protocols. And it's something that they could do whenever they need to for the rest of their life. And
Ah.
so I put the power back into the hands of my clients. They shouldn't have to look to me or to anyone. And that's part of the problem, Neethi, is that we have been conditioned to look outside of ourselves. At a young age, we were conditioned that we had to go to the doctor, and the doctor would tell us if we were well or not. So we go to the well child checkups, and we condition our child from the time they're born that they don't know what's going on in their body. Only the doctor knows. And then they're told that only the teacher knows if they're smart or not. And then they listen to their parents, and then they listen to their bosses at work, and then they listen to the government. So we have been conditioned from a very young age to look for the expert, and that the expert is outside of us. We have not been taught to believe in our own intuition and our own
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. And so when I work with my adult clients as well, I'm putting the power back in their hands and teaching them the process to go through to get back into their body and to use some discernment. So
Mm.
really the cooking classes are an extension of that with the kids, and putting the power in their hands
Oh, wow.
and then asking them, how does this make you feel? Now, this can get a little skewed with kids because, of course, they have a hot fudge sundae and they're like, oh, that makes me feel good. Okay, but how did you feel an hour later or 2 hours later? Were you able to focus, concentrate, study? Were you able to go to sleep that night? So it takes a little bit more education
Right.
with the kids, but those are the seeds that I'm planting throughout my program,
Mm.
is that these foods can contribute to difficulty in concentrating and focusing. And so I want them to pay attention to those things. Um, and really, this is how we give them the power back to say, okay, well, maybe I'll avoid gluten now that I have alternatives, right? What do most adults say to me? I don't know how to go gluten free.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what their other options are. So my classes are gluten free because I'm trying to teach kids how to use almond flour, how to use coconut flour, how to use spelt, how to use milled flax seeds. And so, if nothing else, I'm teaching them how to be resourceful and creative, but they're
Exactly.
giving you different nutrient profiles. So,
Ah.
if I were to simmer it down to what, pun intended, to the ingredients that I think make the biggest impact, it's getting them off of everything with glyphosate. I hesitate to say gluten anymore because I think
Mm.
gluten could actually be guilty by association. When we look at wheat products and the high amount of glyphosate, we're probably reacting to the glyphosate. And now with the
Yeah.
work of Dr. Zach Bush, we know that glyphosate is actually an antibiotic. So it's killing the gut biome.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gluten or is it glyphosate? It's hard to know. Um, And I don't think dairy would be a culprit either if we didn't pasteurize it. You know, we killed the lactase when we started pasteurizing, and now we're all lactose intolerant. So it's the processing. It's processed food.
It's processed foods. Yes. Got it. So you, like you said, you feel the culprit more than we label them as gluten or dairy, but it's more processed foods that we need to look for. And if we bring real foods on the table, then those are eliminated as such, right? So just getting the kids to love the real foods would just be so amazing.
And they do.
And they do, yeah.
In my classes, they do. They learn how to make everything from scratch. They learn how to make their own pie crust. They make their own pizza rolls. They make everything, but they also make stir fry. They make Thai zoodle bowls. They know how to swap out if someone has a peanut allergy, how to use almond butter. If someone has a nut allergy, how to use sun butter. We use tahini, which is sesame seed paste. And so what am I really teaching them, though? I'm teaching them resourcefulness and creativity. And my goal is not only to set these kids free, but to have them create new and better solutions for the next generation, for the free world, if they can be free thinkers. But what we know about processed food is that processed food, the chemicals that are added to the processed foods actually cause a stress on the body, which that stress, just processed foods alone, this is remarkable, can put us into fight, flight, or freeze. So just eating those processed foods moves us into the limbic brain. And now we're in survival mode and we can't use our prefrontal cortex. So what have we done, Neethi? I mean, I raised my kids on fast food and junk food. I didn't know any better. I think that's why God has me teaching kids now. This is my restitution.
Right. Yes.
But
Yes.
what have we done? We have a whole generation that was raised on plastic water bottles, juice boxes. Do you know juice boxes were created to be the size of a pack of cigarettes? And that was to condition kids. And the straw was intended to teach them to draw on a cigarette.
Really?
So the processed food companies actually have a business model, and I study business. I look at annual reports. I study business. They have a business model called the addictive food business model. And their intention is to start the kids out becoming addicts as young as possible, because then they have them for life.
Yeah. Yeah. They have so many behavior scientists on their team just to understand the kids' mindset, and they just want to take over, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yep. It's heartbreaking, but true. But and again, we just look at the positive. We're living in a world where we have so many choices that are available at our fingertips. So might as well, instead of feeling bad, just be more resourceful, like you are providing those resources. And our grocery stores, even though there are so many packaged foods, there are so many real foods in there. So just get access to those, understand those. And I feel I'll share something that was just life changing for me when my kids got to being an adult, like close to adulthood, and my daughter started driving. I gave her the keys, and I actually went with her grocery shopping like 2-3 times. And then I'm like, here's the list, and just do those errands for me. And that, Lisa, was just such an awesome change that I helped her get into, because now she knows what exactly to choose. If I give her something that's on the list and she finds something on the label that is out of the ordinary, she'll be the first one telling me, Mom, why did you put that on the list? Because it's not something good. And I'm like, yay, I'm just so amazed that she can tell me that, right? So if we can give our kids those choices, they are going to make those smart choices. But if we do not give them choice, they're just going to pick those same foods that they are used to for years, right? So I just love that we are having this discussion. It just gives me goosebumps that we can help our kids, our next generation.
Yes. I know one of the things that you wanted me to talk about today were some healthy ideas to fuel our kids as they go back to school.
Mhm.
And I've been posting comments in several Facebook groups recently about this. And so the first thing that I would say is, just like you just did, include the kids. You have to include the kids in the process. I don't care if they're 5 or if they're 15. This
Mm-hmm.
needs to become part of their responsibility. And so when you start enrolling them in the process, this is a beautiful thing. So just hear me out. Every parent who says, oh, my kid won't do that, or now I see another battle coming, so I'm going to have to make him or her do this or that. If you can enroll them in the process and make this a fun, creative activity, they actually take pride and they will show you. And my students will prep their own lunches. And so we always do every semester in my cooking classes, which are recorded. So if you don't want to coach your kids on how to do this, I can do that. Because every semester we have a couple classes just on lunches. I do 14
Okay.
semesters. We do healthy snacks. We do breakfast, lunches, dinners. Every semester we do soup. We do a pie crust of some sort. The kids learn basics and they learn some advanced skills. But lunches are really not difficult for kids, and it's something they have a lot of fun doing. You can go on Amazon and get the divided lunch containers, like the 3-compartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a whole list of things that they learn every semester that then they can fill in their own lunchbox. So I give them a lunch planner that says, okay, list all the things that you know that you could make. Now pick 3 each week, make those 3 and make your lunch boxes. But we'll make something, for example, we'll make cherry pistachio muesli. Then we can eat that as a granola. We can eat it as a hot cereal, or we can make apple sandwiches and dip it. We put some sun butter on there, dip it in the muesli, and now we have apple sandwiches for our lunch. We can take almost the same ingredients and we can make an apple, walnut, cherry, oat cookie. And so then we'll make cookies. And so it's taking the same ingredients, but making it a number of different ways so that they don't get bored. Again, this plays on their creativity and they take a lot of pride in making their own lunches.
Mm.
So these are all very simple things to do. I see in the mommy groups, they all feel like they're so limited for lunches. It's only because we've all lost our ability to be creative, Neeti.
Mm.
Everyone is so busy. There's no time. There's no space to think. And so we've lost our creativity. There are infinite numbers of things that we can put in their lunches that they will enjoy and that they can do themselves.
Yes, wow. Awesome. Yes, I love that idea, Lisa, because like you said, if we give them options, they are going to be willing to welcome those options and be creative and start incorporating that.
Yeah, I think we need to be concerned about anything that is given to us for free, particularly by our government. So if the kids are fed at school, there's nothing in life that's free. The cost comes in the healthcare.
Yeah.
The cost
Wow.
comes in the lack of opportunity. You're going to pay a price for that. It might come later. It might be a delayed cost. But I would really ask everyone listening to this, which I know that you have an affluent audience, as do I, and I have been imploring my friends and family to really consider this. What is the cost of saving money when it comes to nurturing our next generation? This is the next generation of leaders, and yet we want to cut a coupon or take the free lunch instead of focusing on, but then we want our kids to get into some Ivy League school, right? Like we want them to have the best opportunities, but we needed to, pinch pennies and feed them the cheapest breakfast cereal. And we had to feed them the, make believe maple syrup instead of the real maple syrup, because that's only $4.99 instead of $12.99. People are like, real maple syrup's expensive. Well, yeah, because it's a natural resource. It comes from maple trees. Gallons to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. It is expensive, but it also comes with minerals from the maple trees, the way nature, the way God intended, versus something that is completely made in a lab. So this is for all of the adults that are listening to this right now. You need to look at where your priorities are, because actions speak louder than words. And in many cases, we're the ones who are incongruent. That's why the kids are so confused. And a confused mind, has a difficult time making a decision. So we need to be more congruent as adults.
Absolutely. And you made a very valid point that we at times just keep looking at our grocery bills. I've seen so many patients, Lisa, who are like, if anything, if it is more than $50, they are concerned. They're like, the grocery has to be $50. So obviously they are not making the right choices. They are not buying organics because they want to keep it under 50. Well, if you uh, make your way such that your grocery bill is smaller, maybe you'll end up with a bigger healthcare bill, right, which you don't want. If your grocery bills are bigger, I'm not saying that is true always, but if you focus on buying the right groceries, that way you'll be healthier and you don't have to pay that much to your doctors. So yeah, don't focus on making those grocery bills, or don't focus on buying those coupons and going there, but focus rather on health. So I am with you 100% on that, Lisa.
Yeah. I'll just wrap that up by saying when we're putting real nutrient dense food in our body, we require less of it. So when I work with clients and they're like, oh, it's so expensive, I say, just trust me, within 6 months, you'll see that your grocery bills will level out and become less. Because as we migrate you off of this processed food and onto food that has more nutrients in it, you don't require as much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And initially we are stocking up, right? So your nut butters. So when you are starting out, it might be a lot, but then those last forever. So as you said, the grocery bills are going to get smaller along the way.
Yes.
Absolutely. Wow, this was awesome. And I know we can go on and on this topic, because I know both of us are so passionate about this topic. But on just the closing, as we come to that, what is a golden nugget or something that you would like to share for our listeners who want to make sure their back to school agenda is filled, and they want to make sure that they are giving their kids the right nutrition?
Yeah, I would say make sure that you're feeding them nutrient dense foods, involve them in the process, allow them to create and participate. They will take pride. I promise you, they will take pride in preparing their own lunches. And what you will start to see is you will start to see children that sleep better, focus better, and really it's in their best interest and they want it. Everyone thinks that they're going to have to fight with their child. The kids that I have coming to my class want to cook. I have fifth graders that are cooking dinner for their family now. They want to cook, they want to contribute. So don't be afraid of introducing this to them and enrolling them in the process. And I will also just end on a word of caution, and that is all indications show that we are headed for food shortage, obviously hyperinflation, but also food shortages. So if you could just imagine for a moment that we have this addictive food business model in play.
Mm-hmm.
We have people addicted to certain foods. And then what would happen if there was a shortage of any of those foods? Are we prepared for that? Are our friends and family prepared for that? That's really the mission of Freedom Kitchen. Is I have been working to set people free from their processed food addiction, get people to real food, understand what has happened to our kids, and empower our kids so that we can start creating a new food ecosystem. Um, and I just implore everyone, use your critical thinking ability, get creative, and let go of convenience.
Kudos, Lisa. I love all that you shared, and I'm sure so many of us, we just need to keep this message flowing. And I'm sure you have your upcoming series or summit where you're going to keep promoting this idea. But thank you so much for coming and sharing all these golden nuggets. Just listeners, include your kids. They are creative, they are smart, and they are ready to take over the world.
They are. Hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.